You are watching Exertas.
Earlier, you talked about the analog clock, and I was thinking of this related to binary and SSI, the line that Moses's line kind of thing, yes or no, black or white, this or that, versus analog, which I think is a more organic and natural. How much of something is true, the range of truth. John C. Lilly talked about insanity and outsanity, right? How true something is and the limits of that truth. Do you think that there's something there with analog versus binary in terms of our
100%. 100%. Like, why do kids take to screens so quickly? They're not repelled by them, right? They dive in. And so obviously there's some sympathetic thing going on where like attracts like, and they're just magnetized to it,
It's
right?
just the moth principle, yeah.
So there's something going on in the human brain that naturally responds to this flow of information, right? Whether or not it's appropriate for human beings at certain ages, that I think is the question, right? What is, like, we don't give a 6-year-old a car, and yet we put them on the internet. The brain is traveling at a much faster rate of speed. It's incorporating all this mysterious stuff that is bright and loud, and who knows what they're taking in, but it's a magnet. And so really, it really sucks to put this on parents, but the problem really is in parenting right now. It's that you're bringing something into the sanctity of your house and you're just letting it be, and you're not really responding to it. Televisions were brought into the house without any consideration about the impact it had. And who was the person who pretty much put television on the map?
Heather O'Rourke.
Well,
I mean, if
well,
I'm going to be technical, wouldn't it be Farnsworth and Crooks?
it would be Hitler, right? Because
Oh,
Hitler had the Olympics in 1936 and he wheeled in televisions into the German villages. Like, what the fuck? Like, I mean, I don't care what anyone says, but if your leader wheeled in a box that was showing what was happening in the capital of your country in 1936, that's a big impact, right?
Right.
And then I go back to Rome, right? Where did the first newspapers originate out of? Rome, right? The daily news, the fact that life became this real time narrative. When did those emerge? About 50 BC. When did we see Christianity emerge? About 80 years later, right?
Right.
So you go from the news, this local linear bit by bit narrative, and then all of a sudden you have these gospels, the good news, the eternal news, the newspaper that isn't for every day to day. This is the news that represents all of time, right? What emerged in our society about 60, 70 years ago? The internet, right? Social media. Social media is considered a blight upon humanity right now, but it just, in my estimation, prevented a really terrible candidate from winning the presidency.
Well,
it doesn't look pretty on the surface, but I think all of us in our gut know Trump dodged a bullet, but the country dodged a bullet with whatever is masquerading as that candidacy.
well, yeah.
I
What it
put a
showed
lot of
was that we don't
trust.
want
and I hate to be like but like maybe we were just hyper provoked into the most obvious choice with the stick and the carrot, the sugar bread and the whip, and they get you to like say, "Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Alliance, to we're a United States, we're a puppet state of Israel or NATO or whatever it is. We needed this war chief president, and Trump is." Not just like a violent war chief, he's a deal making war chief, but we're all so grateful in a way I don't think we would have been if we had not had the context. Like we've been led to the point of being grateful. Am I wrong? I feel like we would have not felt this way
Well,
before.
I just want to back this up just a little bit because I sort of want to focus on the things that I've been talking about. And I really believe that there is going to be a call for it, and I think there's a justification for it, that the use of children and computers needs to be controlled, needs to be regulated, needs to be handled other than just putting an iPad in front of a toddler and letting them fend for themselves. Because, what Bill's describing, I see it almost as like it's a limbic reaction You know, it's like, oh, something shiny and moving around and colorful. You know, it's not even, there's no rationalization, there's no intellectualization going on. It's purely a limbic reaction. And the people who, you know, create the software and create these technologies are very good at manipulating that. And that needs to be regulated. It has to change. I think we really need to limit the amount of screen time that kids have for real. I think we need to drastically limit the amount of time that kids spend playing video games. All these kind of things. I think we have to get back to introducing children to the physical world. You know, all this stuff. You know, I know you're a teacher. And I don't want to blame teachers, but teachers.
You can blame teachers.
You know, because
about teachers all day long. Don't worry about it.
You know, they didn't want to come down from the lockdowns because it was like it was easier for them. You know, they didn't have to deal. They didn't have to be in physical proximity to these poorly behaved children.
Vectors.
They could just be, you know, doing what we're doing here and just sort of manage it there, and, you know, sit in their pajamas and so on, and never have to leave the house. That's not going to wash. Children have to be familiarized with the physical world. When I was a kid, I mean, I'm obviously Generation X, I'm older than you guys, but it's like I broke arms, legs, scars, poison ivy. I mean, I got a crash course in the physical world and the dangers of it as well. And if we don't get back to a balance between the digital world, the imaginal world, let's just say, and reality, the physical world, we're doomed. Again, I don't want to keep harping on this, but it's like we're going to need to just stop and say, all right, live and let live is great. You know, we all want to just be cool and libertarian about everything and so on and so forth, but that doesn't work with kids. Okay,
right.
That's fine for adults. You know, everybody can just do what they want. Just don't bother anybody else. But that's not how it works with kids. Kids need to be trained. They need to be conditioned. They need to be guided, okay? And all these kind of things that just sticking a kid behind a screen, laptop, iPad, whatever, is just not going to work. And we know it's not going to work. We've seen the results are in. You know, the science is settled. We need to do something else radically as a society. And, you know, Trump's not going to do it. We need somebody who is a visionary, who has a real strong and inspiring vision of a collective future that we can all work towards and make the necessary sacrifice, not of children, mind you, but the necessary sacrifices to make so we can achieve this together, so we can have a world that we want to live in. You know, it's like there's no shortage of anything. There's enough of everything for everybody in this world. I really honestly believe that. It's just a question of how do we manage it? How do we distribute it? How do we? And I'm not trying to go all Marxist or anything on you guys. I'm just saying,
distribute.
I'm just telling you. It's just like we need to just change our perspective because we're failing our children by the millions.
Hey,
okay?
Chris, are you familiar with Krishnamurti's Education and the Significance of Life?
Yes.
You know, and Sri Aurobindo as well. Like, these people built schools, and their whole, like, their perspective on all this is very resonant with all the things that you're talking about. But I'm also reminded that Krishnamurti, very shortly before he died, he tripped a bunch of people out because he went off about the computer and the future of the internet before anyone else was talking like he was talking about it. And he told this large group of people, he was like, you know, you're going to largely use this for sex and pleasure in one form or another. And he was like, you know, you think that this is all going to be about this, but he's like, he understood the way that people were, the way that people's leanings, like the gravity of it,
the nature of humanity.
Well, we have examples of it. We have examples of it. You know, look at the printing press. Look at movies. Look at television. Look at radio.
Right.
You know, all these communication technologies always get used for pornography, basically. I mean,
right, but the printing press was originally all religious at first. So, like, we prioritized what we used the printing press for. So we even went through, like, more occult, like, esoteric stuff after we're going to print the Bible.
There was porn in the Bible.
Sure, But like you're right, but
The
it
Song
isn't
of
it
Solomon's
interesting?
basically
It
porn.
speaks to sublimation because when we had the print, we went to the mystical initially before just about anything else, and then eventually we when we introduced photography and film, it was like immediately like with sex, like we're like, oh, we can film each other doing whatever, it's like it speaks to the principle of sublimation, the direction that we go. And it's also, this is all so relatable to Marshall McLuhan's arguments about like look at what's just happening like right now, like we're talking about the election. What does it show us? Like it shows us that the spectacle that like people who are still looking to television to be the thing that it's been for them, they're like the mouse at the feeder trying to get a pellet or whatever, and they're like, give me more of that. And they're so caught up in the spectacle of it, they don't realize, a lot of people, especially a lot of older people, don't realize that in the midst of this thing that they're so fascinated by in the display, that there's something else, like another extension of that media that's taking over. And like the malleability that social media allows us when it comes to relating to what this content, like it used to be just we're being entertained or we're spectators looking at the television. We can't interact with the television, yet the internet allows us to interact, and that's the next phase. And so like people are still looking to the previous medium as though it holds the significance that it no longer really holds, because you can dissect it in a way that you didn't used to be able to with a platform. So like it speaks to this thing that Warhol talked about too, about in the future you're going to have a celebrity dies every 15 minutes or whatever. It's not just you're every dog has his day, you're going to have 15 minutes of fame. It's also that you're going to like there's going to be more and more and more celebrities to the point that like everybody treats themselves that they're a celebrity, like that seems to be happening. Like people, like when the grumpy cat died, like the meme cat, it was like people were like crying about that. Like, what the hell is going on? Like, sorry.
Well, but I mean, here's the thing. We're talking about how, this is so clearly headed towards an apocalyptic, eschatological end of the world or civilization or what humanity as we know
Well,
it,
the
right?
potential is there. I'm not saying that's inevitable.
Cool. Yeah, you're not, because you're a nice guy. But the Illuminati or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Because like a lot of people are really excited about the end of the world, are they not? There's like a group of elite that seem to be really hoping for this end of time, end of
they're pushing for it
reality.
now in Europe.
And Mike Pence, yeah.
I think it's part narcissism too, though, to be like, I was the last person that got to go to that party. Like no one got to go to that after I was.
Yeah. Where that's what this
Or
is
if
the end
no one
was.
can go.
Maybe this is the end. They were just celebrating this idea that they could. I mean, they're making fun of Left Behind, but at the same time, there was a certain kind of narcissism in that of like, even though it's making fun of themselves too, I guess. So maybe that's okay.
But I just mean that, Chris is saying this from a clearly like, you don't want humanity to end. You kind of like humanity. There's some people that seem to be aiming towards ending humanity with and time itself, with the hope of this anti-life solid state intelligence. That seems like there's a war?
I feel like I have skin in the game because I not only have kids, but I have grandkids. So
there you go.
My genes are already projected into the future, so to speak, my lineage. So I feel like I have some sort of investment in making sure that my progeny thrive and survive in the coming days.
Totally.
I don't think these problems are unfixable at all. I'm actually, if we just can develop the mental clarity and will to put aside all this nonsense that we're constantly bickering each other, it's just masturbation, really. I think that we can very easily overcome. I mean, I'm a big booster of humanity. I believe in our potential. I think that our tools are very helpful if we don't allow them to subsume us.